once you're domestically making a lot of these things, you take out transportation tariffs and duties, I think we become the low cost producer. And for our business right now, let's say we're part of a 200 million. I mean, we're making parts for Porsches, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Ferraris, that sort of car. And there's thousands of those. And let's say we're 10 million part of a $200 million business. We're never going to be more than a 15 or $20 million business. But if you take the technology we're talking about with the skills that we have, you move down to the next tier of GTIs, Mazdas, Lexuses, Mustangs, Toyota. Now you're in a multi-billion-dollar market, and the chances of becoming a 50, $100 million business go up dramatically.
There was a lot of leaders, peers that were coming together with a lot of deliverables, either time or talent or money or resources or even connections. And so we started what we call CoVentures.world, the world of CoVentures, collaborative ventures, the opportunity to be able to do business with others in a group setting. And so we have a mastermind session that we do on a weekly basis for leaders that want to pool the resources. And out of that, we focused on cybersecurity last year, starting with Cybersecurity Academy, that people could take courses, Security World for specific vertical markets like the hospital industries, as well as consulting aids that offers government grants, commercial incentives. If you qualify, Entrepreneurs University, training for small, medium, and large companies, as well as with compliance. We're working with VenOps. They've come out with an AI tool that would be addressing the medical industry that they're focused in with about 1,000 hospitals. And we also have some other peers that have an AI space, Echo.ai, Savvy.ai, that focuses on employee benefits and behavioral components. We also are focused with Continuum. They are focused with the virtual solutions, NFT, blockchain, which is big, and of course, cryptocurrency, and also in Southeast Asia with Ruba.world. And we also stepped into with Blackbird Global Foundation with a nonprofit. They started with cybersecurity, segued into providing healthcare kiosks and being able to focus from a nonprofit standpoint and generating multi-billion-dollar initiatives. And also recycling, also doing different areas. My invitation is that you might consider joining our mastermind community. We do that every month. You're also in Florida, and you're in managed services. I wonder if you could say more. What are the big ideas, Michael, that you're focusing in your business, your industry, and how do we do business with you, the opportunity, and maybe the challenge that you're facing? But first, what's your big idea for 2025, Mike?
Well, right now it's trying to determine what impact is going to have on our industry overall. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen in 1 year, but things are starting to happen now. So we're watching that pretty closely, see what manufacturers are doing to upgrade their products. We're a value-added reseller, and then we provide ongoing maintenance, service, and support. So the more that the existing equipment can do to self-diagnose and work with us, notify us, so that we're spending our human time on important things rather than mundane things is important.
Well, what do you think about the shift now with Deep Six? That's really upended OpenAI and some of the other AI tools, especially when they were thinking and still considering to building a $500 billion technology center. What's your thoughts along this disruption, Michael?
Well, first of all, I don't think I mean, it's a disruption, but not in the technology. It's a disruption in execution. All that Deep Six has been able to do or whatever is be able to generate and create this AI platform using, smaller chips, less advantageous chips. It's still performing the same basic AI functions. As far as a $500 billion investment in infrastructure, I think I'll wait until I see it happen.
Two ago in the journal was an article about the two multi-billion-dollar advertising companies merging together. And they had a very clear, easy to follow plan of what they thought AI was going to do for them and how it was going to save them a couple of $1 billion on the creative side of things. Whether you believe that or not, that's another story. But it was the clearest plan yet I've seen of how a company or a business is going to implement AI and have it make that kind of billion dollar savings.
I'll go out on a limb, Gary. I think the reason they're merging is that AI has completely trashed the advertising and marketing industry since it was introduced. I think they're doing it out of a sense of survival, and I can't think of an industry that is more ripe for disruption than that creative world between the graphics initiatives and the content initiatives. So yeah, I saw that article. It was a good article, and it does seem pretty clear. I mean, I think
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
the other thing that I would like to try to figure out is all this AI stuff is great. It's a large language models revolve around a database. The fact is that every company has a plethora of data and a lack of information. And so the question would be, from a business perspective, is what business could take advantage of all of the back end AI infrastructure, but put together a toolkit for small businesses to really deeply mine their own data. Um, there's a business opportunity for somebody there, but I mean, just for my example, I generate dozens and dozens of RFP responses that are very similar. On the same note, I run a help desk, with data that goes back 10 years. But if you asked me to tell you what meaningful information I have in that data, I'd have to say, hey, I'll get back to you. So finding a way for small businesses to leverage their own internal data seems fascinating to me.
Well, and it's very important. I'm going through the process of switching ERP systems, and it's developing into a bit of a nightmare. And I just started thinking about, is there a way to tie in AI? Because it really comes down to mapping. And if there's a way to do that, or just about any way's better than what's available today. So um, it's a possibility, maybe. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I'm certainly anticipating the money to integrate AI into the platforms is going to be done by the manufacturers, and we won't really have to do it. Whether, whichever ERP you're using. I mean, I'm sure Oracle is pouring millions of dollars into figuring out how to make it work better, along with all of these data mining and transaction mining companies. I'm thinking of, things that are not necessarily as tied together with a big software application company. It's all the little stuff that really I just scratch my head with how to do it.
I like your point. I think, Michael, that companies are going to build in AI into their deliverables. And of course, reaching down to smaller companies to be able to provide those capabilities is going to be interesting. And I do hear of companies developing that. So we're going to hear it more sooner than later. A deep DeepSeek just happened to be disruptive. People are wondering that they were able to collect the data and rise up with a fraction of what the cost of OpenAI is. I think OpenAI's put in 100 billion into that, quite a bit, and I think DeepSeek mentioned like 50 million. So it's almost like 100 or 100 to 1 or 10 to 1 return that they've gotten. So Gary Drummond, Gary, you're involved with wireless. And I don't know if AI touches wireless, but I think every company's going to be affected by AI. The key there is how much it's going to happen. So I wonder if, Gary, you might say, what's the big direction, big idea that you have in 2025, the opportunity that it presents, and also the challenge that you're facing. But first, start with big idea. Gary?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think AI is here to stay. It's definitely a business enabler. Whether you have a couple of great examples of, I mean, using AI is you could be a a non-coder on Monday, and by Tuesday you can use, the AI to help crank out applications. So it's giving people a reach. It's giving people an opportunity to, do things much quicker than they would typically do in the past. I think it's going to impact marketing significantly with regards to, automated responses based on, you know, um, content that you're engaging with or working with, and so forth. So the point being is that this AI is now generating content, and it's making, in some cases, new decisions for you. So, what we're doing in our business is we are, looking at, anomaly detection based on LLMs, large language modules that are using, multiple training models on the AI to identify any nefarious, anomalies in unmanned vehicles, autonomous. So autonomic, cybersecurity is a big thing for 2025 and going forward. To be able to keep up with this new AI attack surface, you need AI to attack AI. So what we're doing and what we're focused in on, and we have a couple of professors, mathematics professors in our organization that specialize in this area. And with 80% of devices nowadays connected via wireless, there's 3 or 4 of us on this call today. We're all on wireless. None of us are wired in, and that's just a wild guess, but it's probably pretty accurate. And therefore, if you're using AI to generate content or using it to make decisions, you're needing some sort of data flow process, anomaly detection, and the communication stack to be able to pinpoint if in fact it's legitimate or not. So we're innovating and looking at ways to detect that type of nefarious communications and anomalies in the data stream at layer 0, 1, and 2 before an IP address is assigned. So that's what we're doing over at Lock. So it's pretty innovative, pretty bleeding edge. We're intimately familiar with LLMs and training models and things like that. But that's how we're using it. So, but I think AI is going to be here. There's a lot of it is going to be built into the browser. It's already making suggestive, comments and things like that as you type. But as people are looking to, build applications and things like that, it's definitely allowing, non-technical people technical overnight. So it's I think it's the next wave. So we had in the early 90s, Bill Gates with the vision of having the PC on everybody's desk. Then in the early 2000s, we had the explosive internet, and here we're now on AI. This is the next wave, and fake news, fake content, and particularly impacting our autonomous computing cycles is going to be hugely impacted unless we can do anomaly detection on these LLMs.
Well, you're focused, as I understand it, in telecom and wireless. I don't understand how AI might affect it because it's mostly hardware, but is there some software component to what you're doing, Gary?
Yeah, there is. A lot of our service is cybersecurity software running on a software-defined radio that allows us to look at, a vast, frequency range, from 0 to 6 gigahertz. That's the kind of most commonly used frequencies for infiltration and exfiltration of data. And a lot of, if you look at the technical stack, a lot of people put emphasis on the the perimeter, and you got the distribution layer, you got the core layer, and things like that. But wireless is this new network, new frequencies that are going unmonitored. And 20 years ago, it used to be just the Wi-Fi spectrum of 2.4 and 5 and gigahertz I'm talking about. But now it's the frequencies adjacent left and right of that frequency that's getting compromised. And I think a lot of companies are getting compromised, and are getting compromised via the wireless, and they don't know it because they're not monitoring it. And having done hundreds of pen tests and things like that over the years, there's probably not a network I haven't been able to get into via wireless. And then all of a sudden, once I compromise the wireless, I am rocky on the wired side. My AAA allows me to do escalation of privileges. So there's a real need to secure this new perimeter of wireless, and I'm evangelizing for that. And we are adopting AI into that platform because the bigger the network, the bigger the problem. And the only way to keep up with it is to, have anomaly detection on this new content being generated from AI.
So obviously the world's going to be wireless. Starlink is making sure that. So I'm curious what your challenge in your business is at this point for 2025 to be able to roll out, Gary?
The challenge is, depending where you are in the company life cycle and product life cycle, and execution of the business cycle, we don't have a product problem. We don't have really product market fit, go to market fit problem. We don't have issues there. It's I would say for me personally in building the business and getting it to the next level, it's making sure everybody is we have the operations in place to scale effectively. We have our 2025 plan in place in order to kind of scale really rapidly, really quickly. As the conductor of the organization, I need to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music, so to speak, and everybody's playing the same type of rhythm. So I'm focusing on scaling the business this year, and making sure that that we have the processes in place to deal with rapid growth. It's quite an exciting time, right? So once you've kind of broke that 10 million and you're heading to the next phase, scaling the business is key.
Yeah, it certainly is. So let's hear from you, Gary. You're involved in manufacturing. You're involved with also sports cars, performance sports cars, and also doing metal 3D printing. So those are a lot of different areas. I wonder if you could share, Gary, what's your big idea going forward for this coming year, the opportunity and the challenge that you're facing? But first, the big idea, Gary Yeager.
Well, the idea is that you start with a high gross margin business in manufacturing, and then you continue to drive your costs down, sourcing effectively worldwide to remain competitive. And of course, the better the margin, the lower the cost, the higher efficiency there is. As far as the 3D printing goes, we've looked at the variables involved, and they're minor compared to the benefits, meaning that we think we can fit 6 headers and take 70 hours to print it. If it ends up being only 4 headers, or if it ends up being 80 hours, machine running 24 hours a day, neither one of those things are deal breakers. And directly, what we do, what it's going to do for us, is probably the lowest benefit. I mean, the people that are using these today are aerospace, medical, those kinds of things. So it just moves us ahead, because the other point is, if we want to grow, and the idea is, if we have 30 welders. If I needed 10 more welders, they're not there. And the ones I'd find are half as good as what I need, and we'd have to train them up. But hiring 10 more welders is going to cost $30,000 a month. The printer costs, financed over 7 years, about $9,000 a month. So it's really the low cost alternative. And then once you're domestically making a lot of these things, you take out transportation tariffs and duties, I think we become the low cost producer. And for our business right now, let's say we're part of a 200 million. I mean, we're making parts for Porsches, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Ferraris, that sort of car. And there's thousands of those. And let's say we're 10 million part of a $200 million business. We're never going to be more than a 15 or $20 million business. But if you take the technology we're talking about with the skills that we have, you move down to the next tier of GTIs, Mazdas, Lexuses, Mustangs, Toyota. Now you're in a multi-billion-dollar market, and the chances of becoming a 50, $100 million business go up dramatically. And like I said, I think we can be the low-cost producer based on international transportation rates getting so high and the tariffs and duties that are in place, let alone the additional ones that are getting kicked around. And so it becomes the chances for success become greater. How about that?
How about that? How about that is right. Although I would think that everybody's thinking the same thing. It's a competitive field in any field. So it's probably a race to who can figure this out a little bit better. And robotics, of course, and 3D printing and automation and AI is coming into play quite a bit. So the key and the combination of all of those things is going to be the key to the success to a business. So going forward, Gary, it doesn't sound like you bought your first 3D printer yet, but maybe you could share what's the big challenge to getting to this direction, Gary?
Well, the technology changed, but before I go there, robotics and things like that are great, but they're not applicable in every situation. Back in the late 90s, I brought in to another manufacturing business. I had robotic welding and automated bending equipment, went from 100 people to 40 people, and was really making quite a bit of money at the time. But there was a roll up in the industry, and I didn't want to be the odd man out, so I sold it. But it's so analogous that robotic welding to 3D printing. The difference being is that what I made then was flat and square. The robot only has to hit a certain point. But when you're talking round, which is tubing and CNC machine parts, and 3D, meaning that it's vertical, robotic welding, I'm not sure it would ever work, and I don't think it would ever be that productive. Whereas in the past 2 years, the technology, metal printing 2 years ago, was you use a substrate of brass or plastic to hold the powder together until you sintered it out. And it was, you're talking about spending $1 million for a square foot cube. Now, we're talking about a desktop 3 feet high, 4 feet wide, 4 feet deep, that we flood with argon, which makes it, which is an inert gas, which makes a better weld. And there is no substrate. And the method that it is put together is with a laser welder. So it's entirely different. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but with the technology where it is and the samples we've seen and the equipment that we've looked at, the chances of success are possible.